Hello, my friends. This is Colleen coming to you from my craft space, and today is a video about back to school. And we are going to be making some back to school embellishments. This is for the Hop Little Scraps Big Impact, which is a hop sponsored by Ginger from Ginger's Corners. And once a month we come to you and we make embellishments that we will later use on either cards or scrapbook pages. And this month's theme is back to school. And so I made this big embellishment. It came out a lot bigger than I want. Today I'm going to do a smaller version. And we also are going to be making a school bus, a bottle of glue, and a pair of scissors. And if you hear any noise in the background, hubby just came in from his walk, and he is retired now, so we're learning to work together in our space. So I am going to show you how I made each of these embellishments. So I will start with the little school bus. And I am using today my Cricut. And so I have this cartridge called Locker Talk. And on this cartridge, there are the directions to make the school bus. And you can see you have to cut several layers and several pieces, and how to make the glue bottle and the pair of scissors. So we'll start with the school bus. And for the school bus, I have a background layer of black. I have this yellow layer. I have the little red piece that says school bus. I have a bumper, silver, cut in silver, and these other little bumper type pieces cut in silver. And so those are the pieces that I am going to be using to make the school bus. And the first step I usually do is I ink the backgrounds. But on this particular one, I did not. I just took the pieces and glued them together. So I'm going to try to show you and kind of talk and catch up on things as I go about doing this. I have a glue in a fine line bottle here, and just to be able to get the glue, hopefully it's still working with glue. And a pair of tweezers is usually your best friend when you're trying to glue. This piece is relatively bigger, but when we get to the smaller pieces, the glue helps, and then I don't get it all over my fingers. So as I said, my husband is now retired, and we are learning about retirement life and how to blend the two lives together. And so I really need some more light. Hubby, will you please turn on the light, overhead light for me?
Yeah.
Hey, so there we go. That's helpful to have an extra pair of hands when you're already sitting down. Thank you so much. And I hope that doesn't give us a glare, but we don't have any photos, so it shouldn't. So what you have to do when you cut things out on the Cricut is you have to line them up. And so you can see I went ahead and lined it up so that I can cover up a lot of the black, but we want the windows and doors still to be black. And on this one, I didn't ink the edges until I was completely done. I remember that that's what I did. And I did just a little bit of very light inking on the silver, just on the very edge, so that it would come separately. So now we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we schedule our days together so that we have time in the morning to do our devotions, and that we spend time together, but also how do you spend time apart? Hubby's having to learn, what to do with his day and his time. He just came back in from taking a walk and getting a package out of the package box. We live in a townhouse that we rent, and they put at the beginning of the development a big set of mailboxes that are just for packages. And so when a package gets delivered out there, we have to then go out and use a code to retrieve our packages. So that's something that we're getting used to instead of them coming to our door. And it does make it, notice that I wrote, I don't know if you can see it on the white, I wrote that this is the bottom piece because I cut these out a week or two ago when I first made the embellishment. I just didn't have time to do the film. And so then this one lines up at the bottom so that the door opens up and it covers a little bit of these back, those back, what do you call them? Lights, yeah, lights. And you can see on this one that I outlined the door. And so I will be doing that. And we're just gonna, so how many of you are looking forward to retirement? How many of you are already retired or had a spouse retire? And what are some hints about how to handle this new stage of our life? Because it is different. You're home today, you're home all day together, and you still need time to do your hobbies. At least I do. Being able to make embellishments and cards and scrapbook layouts, having the time to do that is very important to me, because that is when I am able to relax and take some of the stress from the days off. And so we're trying to schedule creativity time. We're trying to schedule some vacations. So these little other bumper pieces, I'm just lining them up where it shows me that they belong. And like I said, I did one ahead of time, but if you look at the little picture here, it does give you an idea of how to create the embellishment, and you just cut different layers to make it. So that's kind of what I did with this. But this particular, I'm looking for my little red piece. There it is. This particular embellishment, they have it, you can't really cut many of the layers out separately. So in order to get the yellow and the red and the silver, I had to cut everything 3 times. And so I had a lot of little pieces left over because it cut all these pieces together instead of separately like some of them do. And so I think as they first made it, these cartridges, they went ahead and did that. And then they realized that it was easier if they put it separately. And so I need to line this school bus up and go ahead and get that there. And then I'm going to try to pause the camera while I do the white outlines. Well, no, I'll just do it. It'll just be a longer video because I have several embellishments that I'm making. And I am using this gray flannel Memento ink to ink the edges of my items. And so I'm going to go around the entire school bus and give it a little bit of inking, just give it a little bit more dimension, because this is, even though there's layers, it's relatively flat, which works best in my albums because I have a lot of photos that I want to get in these albums. I'm going to try to put the entire years of school of my niece and or my nephew in one album, and so it helps if I have, I think I need a little bit more glue on the back of this so this will stay down. And that's what you learn. Sometimes you have to, because it's so flimsy, sometimes you have to reinforce those little flimsy areas. And the only other thing this really needs, let's get some excess glue off, is the white outlines that I did, and then this one will be done. And so what I did with this is it has the little lettering of the school bus, and I just did some white inking around the edges with my gel pen. I need to clean my gel pen off. It's got all gunky. There we go. And I did some around in here just to give it a little bit more dimension. I did along outlined all the edges, and just kind of randomly, every so often, did a few, just so I could have a little bit more dimension on my bus. And I'm doing it fast, so I'm not being as careful as I was with this one. And then I outlined around the door to make it stand out. I also have a black pen. I might go around that door with that black pen and see if it'll stand out a little bit better. And so I have a very thin microline pen for the door. And I'm just gonna go around the edges. And you know, when you're filming, you're not as careful as if when you're doing your prep. And you can see that I kind of made a fold there, but it still will look good on a page. No one's going to be criticizing my embellishments. Hopefully they're going to be looking at the pictures and the people in the pictures and focusing on that. Now, to do the school bus, there is a little bit of lettering, and I am just going to outline on top of what is already there. And they kind of have the O's off placed, and there's the L. It's better to see when it's closer up, but because I've done one, I kind of know where I'm going. And that is my school bus embellishment. And then I have a couple others that are really quick. I have a pair of scissors. And the scissors you just cut out in two parts. So first I cut it out in silver, and then I cut out the layer piece, which was these two orange rings. And so first I took them and I inked very lightly on the edges. I don't want it to be really dark, and so I inked very lightly around the edges. So hubby and I are planning some vacation type trips, and we're trying to figure out, do we want to go on a waterfall trip throughout New York, because now we don't have to be back at a certain time, but when we want to go on vacation we're thinking of the beginning of August, and August 2nd, which is this coming up Sunday, we are having a retirement party for my husband in the early afternoon, right after church. And I have been baking and baking and baking a lot of cookies. And so sitting right to my left, I have peanut butter cookies, and I have chocolate chip cookies, and I have ginger snap cookies, and I have big white soft sugar cookies. My family's favorites are the big white soft sugar cookies. The younger ones usually love those the most. So I just put a little bit of glue, and this is my scrap paper so I don't get stuff all over my desk. It also shows me where I'm filming. Well, this is actually my dining room table. And the other family favorite is the ginger snaps, which have a lot of good spice in them. They got ginger and allspice and nutmeg. So they are, and molasses, that's what makes it very yummy. And so hopefully you could see that all I had to do was attach the circles. A lot of times I go into the back and make sure that they're really down. And now I'm just going to ink the edges kind of lightly with my gray. And that will really take care of my scissors mostly. Just a little bit of outline. I don't know if you can see the scissors there. I can go ahead and ink around all the edges. So I'm trying to think if I made any other kind of cookies. My niece came one day. She's up from North Carolina. And then Katie and Minda came another day and helped me with baking of cookies. And hubby helped me yesterday putting the trays in and out of the oven. It has been a lot of work, so my back and leg are kind of talking to me a little bit today. And then we are going to make deli trays and a fruit tray and a vegetable tray and a salad and have some potato chips, I guess, just for something else. Here, I didn't do it on my original, but I see there's a couple lines there that will kind of give the scissors some character. So we're going to go ahead and just draw a few little lines on the scissors just to give it a little bit more dimension. And I am not an expert at this. My good friend Ronnie Sue is. If you haven't watched Ronnie Sue Scrapper make embellishments, she is very, very good at that. And so I always enjoy watching her. And she is very good at making these embellishments and knowing exactly where to put the little white lines to give it a little bit more dimension. I am just going around the edges and leaving a little space. And there I have a pair of scissors. And so that's a second embellishment that I'm making for you today. And now we have a bottle of glue. And I cut all of these out on my Cricut. And for this one, I had to cut the background, the gray bottle for the background. I had to cut the little purple piece. And you have to cut them, the orange and the blue piece. And they kind of go together very, when I cut this all these layer pieces cut at the same time, whereas on some of the cartridges they cut at different times, and it makes it much easier to cut so you don't have as much waste. But I wanted the 3 different colors for contrast, and so here I'm just inking around the very edge of each component just to let it stand out a little, but I'm not heavily inking because I think that takes away from the brightness of the color. And since this is for an elementary school picture, I think it might be kindergarten or first grade, that my nephew is going and his sisters are going back to school. So I really want to emphasize kind of that bright elementary school colors. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of this piece that says glue, and there are some lines when you cut these out that kind of show you exactly where to place them. And sometimes you have a little overlap on the back, but that is usually it lines up exactly, so it tells me I need to place it a little more over so that all the gray is covered up. And that's what I'm trying to get there, right there. And then I will put the orange layer down next, just because I know that the blue layer goes on top. And when I make these, that's why I always have an example, because then you kind of remember how to do it. And so when we're doing it live, that we know what mistakes not to make. And by lining that up, and I'm going to go ahead, and this one's not lining up as well as it should. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have to wiggle them, and sometimes you just have to trim off a little bit if you need to from the background. But that just took a little bit of tweaking. and to get it lined up. And this little piece has to come over a little more. I think I can go ahead and glue that down. And so we're having a party on Sunday, and then we're thinking about traveling, and we're trying to figure out where do we want to travel to first. Do we want to go see some waterfalls? Do we want to go see some caves? The weather has been very unusual for July, very rainy. And this little blue piece goes here, and then I'm going to do some white outlines, and then this piece will be done. And with the white outlines, there are some marks on there already. Or do we want to go around Lake Ontario, the entire lake, which would mean around the bottom of the lake in New York State, which is like Buffalo and Rochester, and then on up the coast. And the northern part of the lake is in Canada, which we have traveled up to Canada many times, about 5, maybe 6 at this point, and it's one of our favorite places to go. Another thought is to go down to the Allegheny Mountains in Pennsylvania and go through some of the Pennsylvania Dutch country. And so we have lots of choices. We just trying to finalize our thoughts, but part of it also is it's supposed to be very rainy, whereas usually July and August is very hot and very dry. This year it's been very wet and a little cooler. I don't mind the cooler weather, but when it's wet, you can't really go for a nice walk outside. And we really like to explore waterfalls and lakes, and sometimes museums, and we're foodies, so we like to explore different types of food. And so you see, there is how I made my glue bottle. I just went around and outlined along the edges. See that I need to get the purple edge here, and around the letter glue, so it would really stand out, so that we know what I'm making. And then the last piece I have is to go ahead and make this embellishment. I really didn't like the pencil or crayon part, but I did like the back to school part, and I want to make it a little bit smaller, and that's a lot of little letters, a lot of little letters, because it cuts them out individually. So I have all the little tiny pieces in this bag, but I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and get those pieced together rather than show you how I did it. And when I come back, my embellishments will be done, and I will be able to show you and think about making a layout. Well, my friends, I am back, and hopefully I can splice these two videos together. This was the embellishment that I was going to pause, but I actually stopped the camera. But this is the embellishment I was working on. I had to put the letters back to school and the little pencil on, and I didn't want to have you watch me do all that tedious gluing. So today we made the school bus, this back to school symbol, this glue bottle, a pair of scissors, and then I want to show you what I did with the negative of these, because I always like to try to use what I can. And so I took the negative of these letters, and because I had to cut in all 3 colors in order to get the orange, the black, and the light blue, I ended up with 4 back to school signs. And I do have a lot of pages to do with them. And then with the original, so these were the embellishments for Little Scraps Big Embellishments. And I took the first set that I made, and I actually did a layout. And so let me zoom, see if I can zoom this back out. There we go. And so I can zoom this out so that you can actually see the layout. And I had a piece of paper that I put on a black background, and this A lot of this is older creative memories. And here is the school bus embellishment that I had made as an example. There's the big back to school sign, my little glue bottle. This is my pair of scissors, and then I made sure to fill my corner. Learned that trick from Moira. And then I just used some stickers here to fill in the rest of the layout and some enamel dots. And so this is for the hop back to school. And so here are my little back to school signs, my extras that I have, and I will use on future layouts, hopefully that you will see. So down below is the link for Little Scraps Big Embellishments, and go and check out what everyone else has done. And I hope that you have a good day, my friend. Bye.